Welcome, everybody, to the Willadelphia podcast. I'm your host, Will Barbera, and today on the show, I give my thoughts on the Joel Embiid profile piece by Dotun Akintoye of ESPN. The article gives details of Embiid's personal struggles from moving to the States as a 16-year-old to the seemingly countless injuries and even the loss of his loved ones. How could this article affect how he is viewed and remembered? Welcome, everybody. Like I said, I'm your host, Will Barbera. Joel Embiid is probably the most dominant basketball player I have ever seen in my life. When it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers, it really isn't close. I'm 25, so I missed out on Iverson, and I kind of caught the back end of the Iguodala years, but I'd be lying if I said I paid much attention back then. I remember the first time I ever felt real excitement about the 76ers was when they drafted Embiid out of Kansas. He was the third overall pick. And I knew he must have been pretty damn good if they were cool with waiting 2 years for him to get healthy and make his debut eventually. And then when he made his debut, I remember sitting on my couch at my home, looking at my younger brother who I was watching with, and I said, this guy's going to win us a championship one day. I was sold immediately. Since that moment, Joel Embiid has been my favorite player on my favorite basketball team. I watched him become a perennial all-star and eventually even become a league MVP. With his personal success came the success of the team. He helped make the Sixers a fun team to watch, who were always in the Eastern Conference Finals when he's healthy. As time went on, I got a lot less optimistic about the 76ers. I often joke with my girlfriend that the 76ers have put me through more heartbreak than any woman ever could imagine of putting me through. And every time they fell short, I was happy to point the finger at someone other than Embiid. It's not like it was hard to find someone else to blame, whether it was Brett Brown or Ben Simmons, Doc Rivers, you name it. Then this weird thing happened. After another playoff loss to Boston, where I was looking for someone else to point the finger at, I'm looking around and can't find anybody. Then I have an epiphany. Have I been letting my fandom for Joel Embiid blind me to what the actual problems with the 76ers are? Was it actually Brett Brown's fault? Was it actually Ben Simmons' fault? Or was I just happy to throw someone other than my favorite player under the bus? I start having that thought. And it got me thinking, maybe Embiid is actually the one to point the finger at. And from that point on, I became very critical of Joel Embiid. I was pissed off at Joel the year that he and James Harden combined for 24 points in a Game 7 against the Boston Celtics. I was pissed off at Joel the next season when his injuries cost us the series against the New York Knicks. And I was super pissed off last summer when he decided he was going to play for Team USA in the Olympics instead of rehabbing that same injury that we lost to the Knicks because of. And then I was super, super pissed off when this report that leaked last year of Tyrese Maxey having to call him out in a team meeting came out. I would complain all the time. For a guy on a max contract, he really doesn't seem to care about being in shape, and he also doesn't really seem to care about the 76ers as much as he cares about himself. At that point, resentment is building, and I'm starting to form this image of a selfish superstar in my head. And after the disaster that was last season, because there's no other way to put it, last season was an absolute disaster, I uttered a few words that I never thought I would say about my favorite player. I said the only way this team can save its future is to eat Embiid's contract and release him. And I meant it. Like, seriously, I was like, I don't see a way out with his injury issues and everything else surrounding him, the amount of money we pay him. Then this article comes out. When I first saw it, I literally thought to myself, do I want to read this? Like, this is just going to piss me off, right? But, of course, I'm a Sixers fan. I got to read it. So I read it, and I had a lot of mixed emotions after reading it. As a fan who has followed the team closely for years, you get this deluded notion in your head that you know someone who you've never even met. That everything that you see in the public eye about someone is them showing you all of their cards on the table. And before I read this article, if you'd asked me to describe Joel Embiid to you, I would say that he is an amazing basketball player who can't stay healthy, partly because he's selfish and immature. I came to that conclusion based on the hundreds of hours of footage I've watched of him trolling opponents on and off the court, hundreds of quotes I've heard from him to the media over the years. But reading this article really opened my eyes to a lot about him that I didn't know to begin with. Joel puts on this fun-loving goofball exterior that makes you think he doesn't have a care in the world. It's what endears him to fans like us and annoys opponents alike. This article highlights that that persona is a facade. Joel is actually a very closed off person. He doesn't trust a whole lot of people. And that has a lot to do with this crazy journey that he's taken to get to where he is. From being raised in a household where he says he knew his parents loved him, but it wasn't in the same way your stereotypical parents would love their kids. So much so that he says he's happy he was raised that way, but he would not raise his children that way. Then he moves to the United States. He's 16 years old. He barely speaks a word of English. He barely knows what basketball is, let alone how to play it the right way. So now you're in a completely different world, surrounded by people you don't know or trust, trying to play a game professionally eventually that he doesn't know how to play. If you had taken me at 16 and sent me to India and said, you're going to learn how to speak Hindu and you're going to learn how to play cricket professionally, I think I'd actually crap my pants. I don't picture a scenario in which that works out well for me. And I don't know that I would have wanted to do it. I don't know if Joel actually wanted to do it at the time. But the main point is, I don't see a scenario in which that works out well. To overcome all of that at that young age and then get drafted in the top 3 picks of the NBA draft is already an insane success story. Unlike that's movie stuff. Only for him, after a few years later, to lose his 13-year-old brother in Cameroon in a tragic accident. So Embiid dedicates that season to his brother, to his fallen loved one, only to have some media scumbag accuse him of slandering his brother's name by not playing well, which actually disgusts me to think about. This led to an altercation in the locker room. We all know the story, And when this story first came out, I'm completely on Embiid's. I'm in his corner, 1,000%. What is this scumbag bringing up his dead brother gonna do? Like he's making some credible point. And then he made this comment that started to make me angry again. He said, quote, "I've done way too much in this fucking city to be treated like this," end quote. It pissed me off because, quite frankly, what the hell have you done in this city? What have you done for this city? Winning MVPs and scoring titles are doing a lot for your legacy. It doesn't really do anything for the city. I was in the city. I'm a fan. Winning an MVP doesn't give me a reason to clap my hands and go run around the streets the way the Eagles winning a Super Bowl does, the Phillies winning a World Series does. You're not doing anything for the city by winning an MVP. So that made me mad. What have you done for the city that you think that you've earned that? And at the same time, I'm not saying that makes what the reporter said okay, but it's a lie, So like I said, at this point, I'm mad until the interviewer changes topics from that locker room situation to his injury history and the narratives that surround Joel. It's happened so often throughout his career that it's easy to forget that Joel has been placed on the injury report 123 times since debuting with the Philadelphia 76ers. You name it, Joel has been plagued with it. Foot issues, back issues, weight issues. He even had to deal with Bell's palsy. Just insane. Who has to deal with Bell's palsy in the NBA? One quote in the piece in particular by former 76ers teammate Nicholas Batum made me change my tune about what Joel has done for the city. Batum said, "I saw his knee before every game and after every game. I have no idea how he could even walk." To hear his former teammates say that, and then to hear his former physical trainer, Kim Casper, who they talked to quite a bit in this article, talk about the amount of pain he was constantly in and how he always seemed to want to push through it so that he could play. And then on top of all of that stuff I just said, to hear him say that the 76ers tried to rush him back from so many injuries before he was ready, to the point where he had to, quote, "start being an asshole to get to where he needed to be." It really made me reevaluate myself, not just as a fan, but as a person. At the beginning of this episode, I said to you that if you asked me to describe Joel Embiid, a person I've never met before, never had an interaction with in my entire life to you, I would have, before this article was released, I would have said that he was a great player, but that he was selfish and immature. As I read this article, I realized I'm the selfish and immature one. I've never met Joel Embiid. I never even really cared about him enough to look up everything this article explained to me about why he is the way that he is. I just complain when I don't get what I want as a fan. All I ever wanted was a 76ers championship. Not once did I ever think about the possibility that Joel is in serious pain and trying to play through it. Not once did I ever think that Joel is a human who's going through things like the loss of a loved one that would make it harder to play basketball. Not once did I ever consider the personal sacrifices that he's made and continues to make for this city and organization. And because of this article, I see things a lot more clearly now. And I wish this article had come out sooner because I don't think I would have ever kind of changed my tune originally about Joel. When you see the whole picture, it's a lot easier to understand what he means when he says, I've done too much for the city to be treated this way. Joel has won an MVP, a scoring title. He's changed the culture of the 76ers. They were the worst team in basketball when they drafted him, and now they're almost a perennial Eastern Conference contender when he's healthy. And he did all of that while putting his long-term health at risk at basically every step. There are few athletes in today's game that I think would even consider doing that. After reading this article, if you ask me to explain Joel Embiid to you the same way I would at the beginning, I would say he's a misunderstood human, he's a gifted basketball player, and he's a warrior unlike anything we have seen in today's National Basketball Association. Through all the burgers eaten on the sidelines, the troll jobs on Twitter, the on-court fights, and the off-court drama, one thing has remained consistent. The Philadelphia 76ers will go as far as Joel Embiid takes them. How can you not root for a guy like that? So, thank you so much today for listening to the Willadelphia podcast. I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Kabooyah, go Birds. Have a good one.